and also Amrita Vidyapeetham University, Coimbatore. Dr. Hegde has a master's degree in applied geology, earth science from Karnataka University and a PhD degree in environmental science, geo-environmental criteria-based sustainable development planning from Bangalore University. Having joined the National Remote Sensing Agency NRSA, currently the National Remote Sensing Center NRSC, ISRO, at its inception in 1975, Dr. Hegde belongs to the early generation of remote sensing application scientists in the country. So we are very privileged to be interacting with such a scientist today. During his long career spanning over 4 decades in ISRO, Dr. Hegde involved in conceptualizing, planning, and conduct of operational airborne geophysical surveys, aerial and satellite-based remote sensing surveys, and applications for exploration and management of natural resources, environmental monitoring, disaster risk reduction, sustainable development, and you name anything, he has got hands-on experience on that. So we are very fortunate to have him here today. The Department of Space. He has been the chairman and managing director of Antis Corporation, scientific secretary ISRO, director of Earth Observation System, program director, disaster management support, etc., etc. So many caps, and he has been acknowledged from various organizations have been conferred on him. Bhaskara Award of Indian Society of Remote Sensing for lifetime contribution, ISRO Performance Excellence Award for individual contribution, ISRO Team Excellence Award, GIS Development Award, Astronomical Society of Award. The list is very long, and he is currently member Institute of Directors, member International Academy of Astronautics, life member Astronautical Society of India, fellow Indian Society Remote Sensing, fellow life member Geological Society of India, GSI. Sir, it is our pleasure again to welcome you to this august audience. Now, coming to today's seminar, we are having discussions and and a talk from you on India's advancements in communication and navigation. And I understand Dr. S. Rangarajan would be talking to us on that. And also on disaster reduction mitigation by Dr. V.S. Hegde. And we will be joined today by 2 student fellows, Varun and Sriram, in this session. And I request both of these student fellows to be in the interactive mode to bring out the best from these speakers, because you people have many fundamental doubts and many curious things to clear, and it is a great opportunity. So kindly utilize it rather than reducing it to a question answer session. I want you people to interact with them and bring out the best. Sir, the forum is over to you. And sir, who will be speaking first? Dr. Rangarajan or Dr. V.S. Hegde, sir?
Anything is fine. I am fine with anything.
So am I, no problem. In fact, as announced, it is Dr. Hegde. I think you can go first.
Okay, sir. Go ahead, sir. Hegde, sir, please, sir. Again,
yeah. I have to press present, right?
Yeah.
Varun, please help out.
Okay, I think it's fine. Should be okay. And now, please tell me if you are seeing my slide.
Yes, sir.
You are seeing?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So, I think at the outset, let me express how happy I am to be associated with the activities of the UL Space Club. Thanks to Kutti Saab, thanks to Shajil Masters. And it's also a great honor for me to be sharing this evening session of UL Space Club with, the space veteran, Dr. Rangarajan, who has been my many years senior. I have great respects for him. And I also see Dr. Jayaraman, Dr. K. Jayaram, and a lot of other enthusiast students. I mean, indeed, very happy to be sharing some of my experiences. And more than that, I also quite a bit of what we have been doing at ISRO using satellite systems, or to be more specific, the aerospace systems as we moved along. So the theme is extremely interesting this year. It is Satellites Improve Life. And we 100% believe in that, being in Earth observation from the very scratch starting from 1972 onwards, seeing data from the Earth Resources Technology satellites launched by US, we have been seeing, and definitely it is of paramount importance for the space fraternity or anybody to address the issue of natural hazards. See, basically, we have been using the term disaster, but as we moved along, the whole thing has been put into perspective. It is natural hazards. Basically, there is no area on the earth which is free of natural hazards. Every bit of land, every piece of land is prone to natural hazards. Depends on how we expose ourselves to hazards, the place we live, the way we build our home, the way we get into different activities with the nature makes us risk prone. It makes us vulnerable. So we have to be very careful in exposing ourselves to the hazard risks so that we doesn't cause or doesn't get into a disaster situation where we may die, we may lose our life. That means we may lose our life, or we end up incurring a lot of damage to our own property. So am I okay, audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, fine. So the risk reduction has come through a big journey through time and space. I would request all the student participants to just casually download the latest report of the UN Disaster Risk Reduction, that is Global Assessment Report of 2019, which is on the web. First 30 pages gives the whole journey, whole concept. Then a lot of case studies from all over the globe. See, 1970 onwards, even at the UN level, because disasters being a cause for the entire world and the dimension being vast, regional, national, regional, or across continents or local, experts group have been discussing. There have been a lot of strategy groups. There have been a lot of framework actions. And currently what is in vogue is the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, which talks of various actions by various national and local governments for the 2015 to 2030 period. Now, this is being periodically addressed at, the world leaders level. But the whole thing, in fact, I got into understanding this disaster risk reduction using space systems seriously from the Rio Earth Summit. Then came the 9 Millennium Development Goals. Then there was Rio +20. There was a convention in New York. So everything together, they endorsed the Agenda 2030. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals where the disaster risk reduction has to be managed as a part of the overall Sustainable Development Goals. And if some of you recall, 2014-15, when the Indian government changed the Planning Commission into Niti Aayog, the first thing they did is they circulated a kind of direction to all the departments, all the ministries, all the state government to realign or recast the entire developmental activities as per the 17 Millennium Development Goals, which the whole world is supposed to be following, wherein disaster risk reduction is a prime component. You see, there have been Habitat 1, Habitat 2, specifically to address urban issues. So today, there are hazard-based approaches. The social dimension of disasters is clearly understood, and social construction of risk is understood. So we have to manage disasters. We can't manage hazards. Hazards keep happening because we are a part of the life system. Earth is a life system, including the smallest creature which lives on the earth. I mean, we definitely are included, but we have to be careful in exposing ourselves to hazards so that we don't invite disasters for ourselves. So the Global Risk Assessment Framework, or GRAF 2020, which has come, as I told you, through a long way from the Hugo framework of 2005 to Sendai framework. See, I am not trying to tell any jargon here. These are all very simple things You can click on each slide, you can save, nothing is proprietary, and you can Google and find for yourself. So basically, when we say hazard, we talk of earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunami, flooding, drought, landslide, whatever, which keep happening. And our exposure to these hazards in terms of our own life, in terms of the type of house we build, in terms of where we move, where we run, what dangerous or sweet activities we do, then we get into the vulnerable situation. The vulnerability is defined in terms of economic vulnerability, social vulnerability, environmental vulnerability, and the governance issues, whether there are proper safety norms in place, whether there are proper laws or guidelines in place, then the scale of the whole thing could be global, regional, national, sub-regional, metropolitan, local, anything. So when we talk of sustainable development, addressing disaster risk reduction, we have to address the human, we have to address the ecological aspects, we have to address economic aspects, political aspects, cultural aspects, financial aspects. Everything becomes extremely important because, every living creature has to be ultimately be allowed to live safe in this scenario. So for a long time, we were managing disasters, responding to disasters. Suddenly there is an earthquake, suddenly there is a cyclone, a flood, a landslide. So wake up. So now from that scenario where we had basically risk-based approach, when we say we, the whole world, today it is disaster management. Basically, we have to work towards risk prevention. We have to live with uncertainties, be aware of the hazardous situations, environment we are living in, and take adequate precautions. So we have to worry about risk prevention today. So with this background, just background which is globally true, up to locally true, up to the place where you and me are sitting is true, let us see what are the hazard zones or hazard possibilities in India. Now, India is a highly hazard-prone country. In fact, 12% of the land area, that is about 40 million hectares, is flood-prone. 8% of the land area, including about 5,500 kilometer long coast out of 7.5, is cyclone-prone. Over 65% of our land under cultivation is drought-prone. But it's a miracle, when we got independence, we were 350 million people. Today we are 1.3. We are managing with all the situation and we are feeding ourselves with food grains, pulses, fruits, vegetables, right? So good situation. We have coped up. So Geo Hazards, if you see, around 25% of the land area is earthquake prone, falls within seismic zone 4 to 5. Himalayan Western Ghats region is landslide prone. Andaman Nicobar Islands, tsunami prone, though it happens once in a week. So these hazards keep happening with or without our interfering. But definitely our interference would have aggravated the situation. Our interference means we have grown into too many, something like, 10 of us are sitting in one Maruti 800 car. We have put on AC inside, internal, and we live inhaling each other's exhale, carbon dioxide. If that situation we have packed, if we have packed 2% of our land area with 1/6, 1/7 of the global population. So obviously we are occupying all the hazard prone areas of our country. Okay. Now, for example, you see people living in the top left diagram, if you see, in yellow, I have marked the subduction zone, Himalayan subduction zone, where the Indian plate, you must have heard about the continental plates. Indian plate is pushing below the Eurasian plate. So constantly there is pressure building along the dotted yellow line, along the foothills of Himalayas. So when the strain buildup crosses around 12-13, the sandstone rock few kilometers below gives way, okay? it cannot sustain anymore. But it can happen in minor slips like tick, 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 or it can happen dhadal, one big blow. So there will be transient movement of rock mass below the earth. It will generate seismic waves, whole ground will shake, and we have experienced enough of earthquakes. 1999 Uttarkashi has been one of the most recent and most terrific. So you will see in rest of the maps, top right, bottom left, several parts of the world, mostly the continental plate boundaries, are seismic prone, earthquake prone. And with respect to India, the bottom right diagram, if you see, there are also some intra-plate boundaries, major fractures, faults caused later. So now coming down to our space systems, I will not talk too much on this because you have heard to YVN Krishnamurthy, Dr. Ganesh Raj, and plenty of information is available on the web. We have about 50 or 51 satellites up in space today. Communication satellite, remote sensing satellite, navigation constellation, and satellites for space science. And we also have instrumented aircrafts with a laser altimeter, digital camera, synthetic aperture radar, and all that. So what do we do with space technology for fulfilling the goals of sustainable development goals? The socioeconomic security wise, we address few natural resource scenarios. Sustainable development issues are well addressed. Disaster risk reduction is a key, and space is also helping in a big way governance. We give a lot of information, spatial information, locale specific information for addressing appropriate issues on the ground. Now, specifically with respect to disaster risk reduction, how have we deployed our space system? Anything? Any issue? Am I okay?
Yes, sir. It's fine. You may continue, sir.
Okay. So, if any issue, you can call me on my mobile, okay? I'm keeping it on by the side. So, you see, we have satellites for met ocean observation, satellites for emergency communication. We have high resolution imaging satellites, synoptic viewing satellites. We also have all weather sensors, synthetic aperture radar. I told there are aircrafts, but equally important are also ground systems. There are automatic weather stations, there is Doppler weather radar. Now, having this kind of infrastructure is not alone enough. We are capable of generating information, that is not enough. So we have set up a decision support center for disaster risk reduction. We have live interface with all the concerned ministries because Central Water Commission manages all water related issues. India Meteorological Department manages all cyclone related. Geological Survey of India manages seismic. Like that, okay? We have live relation with all the line departments. And we also have several other administrative bodies, Ministry of Home Affairs, National Disaster Management Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. We help them with timely data, timely input, timely policy inputs to enact appropriate decisions so that we take care of ourselves and we keep contributing to disaster risk reduction. So we are also constantly developing the technology. We are constantly improving upon our forecasting simulation models. And we have also set up, I'll come to the other things. We are setting up a lot of things. See, the automatic weather stations is something we have installed in a number of places. I must tell you here one beautiful example which Karnataka government did. In fact, my close friend, when Dr. Prakash was the director, see, we were giving input at district level. Government of India was conveniently telling the entire district is drought prone. Say Karnataka declares 11 districts as drought prone. Huge compensation is given. It goes to district kitty, okay? Now, district collector doesn't know where to distribute. He comes into pull and push. So by densifying the weather stations, by simply densifying the rain gauge stations, linking that with the sowing pattern, the entire, the compensation pattern was made much better, much effective. So we are also supporting space observations with a lot of other instruments like, we have sounders, we have handheld equipments, and we have meteorological data. We have densified our Doppler weather radar even in very difficult areas. And we are helping, mesoscale modeling with a combination of space, ground systems, okay? And Dr. Rangarajan would probably mention these things. We have also developed a lot of instruments for emergency communication. Today, we have the cyclone warning disaster network all along the coastal area, which are working on satellite. We have developed satellite-based handheld messaging terminals. Like earlier, the fishermen need not get into sea blind today. They have a distress alert terminal, which tells them about severe weather, which incidentally also tells them with the help of our navigation satellites by mistake if they are crossing the international waters. So if they get into Pakistan, Sri Lankan waters, they will take our fishermen as hostages. So all such things are avoided. And today the so-called infotainment channels, information entertainment channels, more than 850 disaster, the DTH channels also cast the weather data every day on a routine basis. We come to know about the fire in California. We come to know about a small fire incident in Vizag, okay? So let's now come back on the main purpose and our performance and beyond. So what is that we are trying to tell them? I have told you, we are no more getting alert when the disaster strikes, okay? We have deployed our aerospace systems in the total cycle of disaster. That is preparedness, then during the disaster event, then during the relief operations, then we give a lot of inputs for rehabilitation, reconstruction, and mitigation. See, what do? We are well informed about the disaster risk, how a hazard can get converted into disaster, how it can affect all of us, physically, financially, societally, economically. So we are today a total risk-informed community, and we are striving to achieve sustainable development. Okay, but life is a big process of adjustment, okay? So we have connectivity, we have thematic layers coming in from remote sensing satellite. Everything together is helping us to decision and action, okay? So we have disaster warning, vulnerability assessment, emergency communication, and whatnot. So with this background, we will see few case studies. I will not be able to show you everything, but these things I would like to tell you more as stories. See, I mean, in this kind of talk, I can't really, or we can't get into, some addressing some pointed technological issues. And to be very frank, even I'm not good at it. So yesterday when Mr. Arun, when he sent me some question, I took the help of Dr. V. Jayaraman, who is probably listening to us now, and whatever information he provided on, the radar from geostationary and low Earth orbit, I passed on to Mr. Varun. So Varun, your thanks should go to Dr. Jayaraman, okay? So coming back, okay. Now disaster risk reduction, operational services provided by us. See, we monitor all the flood events on our own. We do the damage assessment for earthquake. We address cyclones, landslide, drought, forest fire, and a lot of other disasters also, whether it is chemical, man-made, all that. We give the information to Home Ministry, Central Water Commission, Ministry of Agriculture, Geological Survey, Meteorological Department, Ministry of Earth Sciences, and we also give to all the concerned state authorities, okay? It is a tremendous networking. I mean, having the technology, having instruments, having satellites is not enough unless we network into the entire livelihood and administration of the country. And we have done it proudly. And I'm extremely proud having been a part of that effort in Department of Space. Now, just don't worry about, this is a 2007 example. Don't worry about it. We are doing the same thing today. one of the worst years of drought. Just one state, Bihar, nearly 5,000 square kilometers was flood inundated, flood affected. Just imagine, one of the most densely populated states in our country. Now, let me come to one specific example. Now, I'm going to tell as a story because I have to be conscious about time also. And now you see, just I told you about the earthquake proneness of the Himalayan rim, the subduction zone. And I have taken a small part, a white circle, Kosi River basin. If you see carefully in another satellite image, there are a lot of old streams of the Kosi River. Because the whole area being mobile, neotectonically or seismically active over the past, the Kosi River has been behaving as a pendulum, swinging from one side to another. You must pardon me here. I have put the yellow arrow in the right bottom picture in the wrong direction. Presently, the Kosi River, presently means, okay, over several hundred years. It is nothing like present means it is not present. I have put the arrow on the wrong side. I forgot to change. Now, from right to left, the river is swinging because there are many channels further right also. But those channels are today cut off, abandoned. And the Kosi River in recent past has been swinging towards west. So 2-3 lines are pretty active. Okay, the bottom arrow, bottom arc, it shows the extent to which it has been swinging. If you see carefully from west to east, Kosi, then King Kosi, this Kosi, that Kosi, Gagra, Gandak. Gagra, Gandak is to further left in UP. All the rivers there have been oscillating like pendulum in the recent geological past. But if you go to the ground, there is no elevation difference. Now all areas are occupied, all areas are cropped. You just cannot see that these old channels are the carriers of big risk when there is flood, because there is moisture below. They are the most vulnerable unconsolidated zones. But on the ground, you can only see the main Kosi River, where I have written Kosi River, that channel. Nothing else is seen, okay? So, when the Bihar floods happened in August 2008, it happened due to a breach of Kosi Canal embankment in Nepal. Suddenly the inflow, Central Water Commission monitors the inflow. The inflow increased. People became cautious. Why suddenly more water is coming? Then we took the satellite image. We took the radar sat image. The embankment was in Nepal. We wanted to fly, acquire the data. Nepal government did not give us permission. And that is where, Mr. Varun, I must tell you, we had a side-looking airborne radar in C-band. We flew along the canal in the Indian territory, but we were looking 42 degrees towards north. We flew from east to west, west to east, along Himalayas, but we looked sideways. We imaged where exactly is the breach. Now the canal will not breach totally. So starting from 24th of August, we started acquiring the data. Then we started seeing how the flood water is gushing. Are you seeing the animated picture now? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Yes,
Are you
yes.
seeing the animated picture?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yes, we are
It
seeing.
was a Herculean task because we told Bihar government, kindly evacuate all the people in about 5,000 square kilometers area. But the inundation happened in about 2,000 square kilometers, 1,86,000 odd hectares, and 5,000 square kilometer area, about 5 lakh people, animals, everybody has to be evacuated. And just you can appreciate 1/8 of the geographical area of Kerala, okay? They never agreed to evacuate because for ages we didn't have a flood here. Why do you evacuate? And where did the flood happen? It did not happen in the main Kosi River. It happened in the old channels, the ephemeral channels, which are not visible on the ground. So 5 lakh people were evacuated, lot of damage to property, lives were saved, and entire credit can go to space. We were only instrumental, we were of use to this country because we are living out of taxpayers' money. So we also gave the inundation. The peak inundation happened for 624 villages, and 300,000 or 3 lakh people were affected directly. Out of 5 lakhs we evacuated, okay? So then we also studied the area with, SAR data, synthetic aperture radar data, airborne SAR data. And we had acquired before flood, we have acquired after flood, where things appear more clearly. And that is not enough. If we say we can map when the flood is happening, is not enough. But in certain areas like Assam, today for all the river basins, we have prepared flood hazard zonation map, where flood happens every year, every 4 years, every 3 years, every 2 years. So these hazard maps are available. So if there is any excess rainfall, any unusual water-related phenomenon, the district authorities know where to focus for relief operations. I'll come more to it. Now, story number 2, the tsunami, the Great Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004, okay? The affected areas I have marked. This was unprecedented, we never knew. So just see some of the areas which are affected by tsunami. I'll come to specifics, okay? One of the worst disasters. Now you see the Nankori group of islands in Andaman, Nicobar. You see the Kutchal Island, left picture, bottom. All that you see in red is vegetation where people live. And people just know, innocent tribal people see the right picture, a good bit of the island is underwater, right? And similarly, you see Kamorta, Trinkat, Nankori. Now, you take the specific case of Trinkat Island. Now, I have shown the villages also. See beautiful red vegetation, left picture, yellow circle you see. It is all land area, there are villages. Just after the tsunami, say our satellite data of 26 December shows the island is torn into 2 pieces, okay? It's in water, people just know where from water has come. There is no communication, everything is snapped, everything is gone. No electricity, no communication, even otherwise they have difficulty. They are in water, okay? Crisis. The Car Nicobar runway in the south is gone, or the naval quarters, naval establishments are gone, okay? Then Kamorta Island, same story. You see, all water here, which was not true in the left picture. So Kutchal in little detail. Now, what happened? You see, Dr. Rangarajan also will probably speak about the telemedicine network. I had the good fortune of working in Andamans much before tsunami. And Andaman people had a real healthcare issue. If somebody undergoes heart operation or kidney operation, and I am telling Andaman should be of specific interest to Kerala because Andaman population is Malayalis, Tamilians, and Bengalis, okay? So the Lieutenant Governor personally told me, can you do something in addition to giving us the database? We want something for healthcare. So in fact, one of the first operational telemedicine nodes we established was linking the only referral hospital in Port Blair, which is called GB Pant Referral Hospital, to Amrita and Shri Chitra Tirunal in Kerala. Chitra Tirunal is cardiac sciences in Trivandrum, Amrita Kochi, and 2 hospitals, Sri Ramachandra and Apollo in Chennai, and Rabindranath Tagore Center in Kolkata, okay? So this was inaugurated by the then Prime Minister. Subsequently, we densified our telemedicine network. We extended it to 373 hospitals on our satellites, thanks to Dr. Rangarajan and his subsequent leaders who took over after him and ISRO leadership. We had connected this network to about 60, and on the instance of Dr. Kalam, our president, subsequently we had extended telemedicine to Afghanistan. Africa network is currently on after the Afghan war. So it was highly vibrant, okay? Now, Andaman Nicobar Islands, we had 5 telemedicine networks, okay? Connecting a patient to specialist doctor, video camera. See, somebody has got a kidney transplant in Chennai, availed 1 rack from this. He can't come again to Chennai. Doctor will only ask how much water you are drinking per day, how much urine you are passing, are you getting any fever, are you getting hungry? Follow up after kidney transplant. So all this we enabled through telemedicine, okay? Somebody got a most brilliant idea, because after people came to census, about 5,000 people were evacuated by helicopters and thrown into some highland region in various relief camps. After 4 or 5 days of trauma, they started crying. I don't know if my wife is alive, my children are alive, my parents are old, they are alive. Nobody knows who is alive, because helicopter people, they were hovering few inches above the ground, pulled people, taken them elsewhere. Okay, how will they come to know? There is no connectivity, nothing. We enabled it through our connectivity, EduSat channel from our Space Application Center, Ahmedabad hub, which continued for nearly 1.5 years. Somebody got a brilliant idea. That brilliant idea was not ours. If ISRO can set right the telemedicine facility quickly, we will take people batch by batch in front of the video camera. We will put one video camera enabled by satellite in the relief camp. Let people see and identify who is alive, who is not alive. Okay? This was done, and unique in the history of this world with respect to disaster risk reduction, about 5,000 people were joined by their families through a network, satellite-based network we set up for telemedicine purpose, not to unite families after tsunami, okay? So this time, the theme of the webinar being satellites for, for improving life. This is how we contributed to saving lives, improving lives. Imagine people coming out of trauma. But this was not on. Then the relief question comes, no? Everybody started claiming, I had beautiful crop, it got washed away. My crop got washed away. And the district authorities go mad. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, this is one of the areas in Tamil Nadu, actually, Nagapattinam district. Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister personally went. You know, behind him is a satellite dish you can see. Now, the district collector should know who has lost crop, who has not lost crop. You know, political influence, local influence. So we took the satellite data of pre-tsunami, mapped all the areas with standing crops. There is an exhaustive legend in the left side. We superimposed the ownership details, the property ownership details on the left side. But this right side image is the one we used, which actually got inundated and helped the government to give financial compensation relief to every individual genuine farmer. Okay, we are doing it everywhere. So we went a step further. Then we realized there is need for communities, people, administrators to be informed of not only disaster, not only having connectivity. We have to give spatial data, we have to give locale specific data. We set up something called village resource centers, about 40 NGOs. This moment was very much spearheaded by Professor Swaminathan. We had 473 spread across about 22 networks in 22 states and union territories. We started giving rehabilitation. See, a lot of women became widows in tsunami. A lot of children became destitutes. If you leave them out, they will either become beggars or laborers or criminals. So we started giving them tailoring classes, carpentry, electrician, nursing assistants, so that they can make their livelihood. We started giving them via satellite connectivity, through webinars like this, through hands-on like this. Some universities like Satyabama started even conducting classes, started even conducting convocations, and they got jobs in atomic energy. Many of them got jobs in Dubai, made livelihood. Okay, we didn't leave it. So with this story, okay, let's go to the third story, short range weather prediction, how we track cyclone, lot of improvements in software. So response to cyclone Sidr in 2007, and the cyclone images we also gave to countries like Bangladesh, because we are a part of international cooperation about drought. We monitor drought regularly during Kharif season. As I told you, we are a proud country. From 35 crores, 130 crores of people we are feeding today with crops grown in our own field. Okay. So the next story of landslide hazard zonation, exactly identifying where the landslide has occurred, where the river is blocked, how do we clear, why it's important, why monitoring such things is important. I'll come to that. Okay. So that was not enough. For perennial landslide hazard prone areas in the country, we have got hazard zonation maps. Based on our zonation activity in the entire road tract in Uttar Pradesh, Uttaranchal and Himachal Pradesh, and subsequently J&K and Northeast, many villages have been vacated today. They have been rehabilitated elsewhere to relatively hazard-free zones, relatively, okay? So another story, equally important story, having a very difficult international connotation. See, in May 2004, you must have heard about the Bakra Bias multipurpose hydroelectric project, hydroelectric irrigation project. See, one night, our National Remote Sensing Center gets a phone call. I am getting turbid water into my turbine. I am afraid my plant will get into trouble. So we took the imagery, which is in the Chinese occupied Tibet region, started seeing a small glacial lake was accumulating water, which was otherwise empty, bottommost left. Then we started monitoring. About 180 hectares of water was there. We sensed the risk. We got into early warning. Then as a landslide had impounded the outflow of the river into the Satluj River, there was a need to breach this in a controlled manner, which we cannot do. So we approached through our foreign ministry, we approached the Chinese authorities. They helped us breaching. I have to go a little fast, is it?
Yes, sir. How many more slides?
I have just 4 or 5 slides more, 5 more minutes. Okay. Now I am done with the stories. Now I will come to how we have actually institutionalized. So we have a disaster alert watch team at our Hyderabad center, and we give info to our, constantly the coarse scale image of our continent, subcontinent is viewed. Any disaster we sense in a hazardous zone, we alert the people, we give the data, and right side you can see physically the control rooms and all. And we have a system. We have created exhaustive databases. YVN Krishnamurthy, Ganesh Raj also would have spoken about it. We have developed software. We have enough redundancy. We have networked the database with all the user segment, okay, national nodal agencies to handle different disasters. So our disaster risk program is a total process. The top right corner today, you have the National Disaster Management Authority. Then there are state disaster management authorities, various nodal agencies. We just play a support role. The center, state, and district are in our network. The standard operating procedure as to what we give to whom is extremely clear. We keep giving it. And the most important thing, about 15 years ago, we got into creating an exhaustive database called National Database for Emergency Management. This is important. The main server of this, which we have created, resides in National Disaster Management Authority in Delhi. We have a mirror server. When we keep improving, we keep uploading. What does this data have? It has got all the spatial data. It has got some decision support tools, software tools to make queries, synthesize what they want. It has a mirror database elsewhere, and we have enough query shells. Now, just to give you an example, before each cyclone season, a set of people go with GSM mobile, school buildings, function halls, Kalyana Mantapas, or, some of the other facilities where if there is a cyclone where people can be housed, the condition is assessed. Whether the roof is okay, whether the walls are okay, how many people it can host, how many blankets we have to store there in the event of 2,000 people being put as relief. All such things are assessed, okay? So it is all done through crowdsourcing, which directly gets into our GIS database. See, the spatial database is updated every disaster risk season for the vulnerable areas, okay? So this database has spatial data, attribute data, and various kinds of data. And we have also set up our communication network in state disaster control rooms, which is video conferencing cum database management facility. So today, our disaster management program or disaster risk reduction support program has a rapid response and emergency service. It has alert and forewarning service. It has regional disaster reduction nodes, our own centers, 5 regional centers, the Northeastern Center, many state centers who are in, regular contact with us. All we treat as regional centers. They work with the state agencies. So we have completely got an institutionalized mechanism today. We do constant capacity building. Our navigation satellite system is thickly inducted into the whole activity for locational service. And we are a part of all international activities, whether International Charter Space and Major Disasters or United Nations SPIDER or Sentinel Asia, where we have been one of the prime movers or whatever, okay? So in 2019 itself, this gives you a feeling up to October 2019, how many disasters we had in our country. I told entire country is disaster prone. See, except Rajasthan, J&K, Arunachal Pradesh, we had disasters, or Bhutan, we had disasters everywhere, right? So even the most recent cyclone Feni, we gave a lot of damage assessment input to government of Orissa. So forest fire is also something we monitor. Landslide damages in Kodagu. The other day you must have heard one family near Talkaveri, where Kaveri is born, got completely washed out. They were not moving. And I must tell you something which we have done in Munnar also. You see, whenever there is a clay-rich soil or thick column of sandy loam soil, whenever it is soaked with heavy rainwater, the soil mass swells, okay? When it crosses its tolerance limit of accumulating moisture, the whole slope of the hill slips. So some time ago, with Amrita, they got funding from Europe and European Commission called WINSOC, Self-Organizing Wireless Network Project. We gave satellite connectivity. They installed a lot of wireless, wireless is line of sight things in landslide hazard prone areas of Munnar. So whenever there is a micro moment, the probe is inserted up to about 6 meter level below the surface. Whenever there is a minor millimeter, centimeter level kind of movement, the wireless sensor gets activated and hops, signal hops. Through satellite, it comes to control room to district authority, evacuate people. We have done it in Himalayas also. You see, I mean, see that today there is no limit to use the technology as long as we are ready to spend peanuts, put an institutional mechanism. See, we have been supporting so many disasters across the world also. 2019 itself, you can see in the Asian region how many people we have supported. So I think now for many international projects, since we have a large team of experts, we take the data, we analyze it online, we send it off to their country on our own as a service. Okay, whether they ask or don't ask. This is one such case where we have done for some other country. We push it through the web. Okay, the roadmap is extremely beautiful. Our space program is very strong. And this space program is definitely going to be deployed or continue to be deployed in support of disaster risk reduction. So with this, let me thank you all for the opportunity. I must thank ISRO because a lot of inputs, a lot of pictures, a lot of programmatic linkages I showed are what we developed, and I'm proud I have been a part of the team. And the opportunity to share my experiences with you was given by UL Space Club. So Kuti Saab, Shajil, Dr. Jairam, the young students, you are all with us. Dr. Jairam is with us. And since connectivity in my house was bad, I liberally used my friend's office in the layout where I stay, where there is an excellent connectivity. I hope you are able to see. Thank you very much once again. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this very lucid presentation. Such a complex task has been explained in very simple terms. We appreciate that, sir. Kindly stand by. Kuti sir, would you like to please intervene and say a few words?
Thanks, dear Jayaraman. Dr. Hegde, you have told not only the disaster risk reduction system, but also lots of stories which make the reality on the ground that happened go deep in the minds of our students. Tsunami, the reuniting of survivors, and various things of that variety. That is where the utility of science, that is where the common man benefits science that comes. It has been a very nice journey for about 20-25 minutes, and you have also followed the route followed by Vivian Krishnamurthy. You have closed exactly at 4 as he did the other day, and it is our good luck that we were able to get you today and share your excellent experience about disaster risk reduction and what ISRO is doing, how ISRO is helpful in the science and technology arena in helping mitigating and relief and disasters and various things of that kind. And even flood hazard mapping is something which got discussed in Kerala in the last 2018 and 2019. I don't know how much of that has been in real practice here. In fact, this year, when this September last month, the rains were very heavy, people were discussing about that possibility and whether any flood mapping has been done. So, my dear students, these are the things which are happening on the ground everywhere in the world, and this is what is the one of the leader of one of the ISRO's disaster fund. Not one, he is the leader of the ISRO in the disaster fund for quite some time, and you are hearing direct from his mouth what is the benefit deriving out of satellite for the common man. So thank you very much, Hegde Saab. And I understand our Subbarao is somewhere in our midst. I don't know whether he's still there.
He is not in Bangalore anyway.
But I think he is there in this crowd. I saw his name here, Subbarao Pauluri. I just saw.
Possible, yes.
I don't know how I had not.
No, I had shared the link with him.
Maybe
because
he must have.
I am using his premises, his office.
Yeah. That may be the reason. Okay. I got a secret now. I got the secret. So nice. So it has been a very, very nice day, very nice event, and thank you very much. Thank you
Pleasure,
very
sir.
much, Sir.
Pleasure is
And,
mine.
Thank you, sir. Sir, please, and I hope this and we will have these interactive sessions and any doubts or questions that these kids who are listening would have at the end of the session. Now, can we just go to Dr. S. Rangarajan and hear what he has to present on the Indian advances in the communication and navigation domain? Dr. Rangarajan, please.
Thanks, Jairam, and my dear old ISRO friends and the younger generation with whom I've been interacting so often. So I feel like of your age. So happy to interact with students who are so brilliant, who give extremely good talks, I've heard. And not only that, within a very short time, taking advantage of this pandemic situation, you have now made this webinar series of UL Club so good, covering so many different topics by very eminent people. And I was so fortunate today that I could listen to Dr. Hegde. We used to sort of chat in the Antariksh Bhavan corridors, and I used to learn from Vijay and from Hegde, kind of things in the remote sensing. But it doesn't come as a surprise at all, such concrete contributions which have been done are so fascinating. And some of those places, it was really a goose pimples for me for the kind of work that ISRO has done for the country. And it's not just the fascination is for a rocket firing and the satellite getting launched. It is on the ground when you see these kinds of applications which have been covering very vital areas and contributed to the society. We really feel that Vikram Sarabhai's dream is really coming true. And for the theme of this year's World Space Week of applications to the society, nothing can be better than the case studies that Dr. Hegde presented. I'm not going to make it very long kind of lecture today because I've been talking to you people often, but I am going to spend more time on interacting. And let us see. But if I want to choose my presentation, Dr. Hegde's presentation is there now, I think, at the moment. Okay. I'll try and see whether I can get it. Yeah, you can turn it off, or I can go to this also.
No, I'll go.
Take over, yeah. If you take it over, I can give. Main speaker present now, okay. Share now. A window here. Just give me a minute. Let's go to present now a window. Okay, let's take this. Can you see my slide? Not it. Share. Okay, put share. Okay. And I can go to full screen. 1 second. Give me a second. Can you see my slide or not it?
Not yet, sir. Not yet.
Not yet, sir.
It was showing share, but right now, present now is not clicking for me. Why is it? I don't know. Turn on caption. It came down for me. Let me see. Where do I?
Yes, sir. Now it's okay.
Yeah, it is coming. It is coming. It has come.
It's
Just
coming.
come.
It has come.
Just come.
And is
Just
it
come.
in full
Just come.
screen? Okay, excellent, excellent. If that were the case, I see it myself. Can I? I can see that also. or I can go to chat box and choose my name or something you told. No, last time I remember you were telling me that if I click on my name, I can't see the screen myself. How do I get it? You are presenting, your screen is fine, but I can't see the screen.
You have to go to pin it.
Pin it. How do I pin it? Where from I pin
Sir,
it?
in people list, your name will be the
People
second.
list is here. Oh, okay. 61 and then my name I should see. Why doesn't it click immediately? Okay. 1 second. Give me a minute for that. And why is it not clicking? It's come there. Your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
There we go.
Thank you, sir.
I think I should put it now. Presentation. Your presentation. With me. This is this. If I choose my presentation, why my voice was yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Good. And I can make it full screen. How do I do it? Give me your presenting. Well, okay. At least I can see it here, and maybe I can't move it here. Well, I'm not able to get it into the full screen mode, but I think it should be okay because I'm not getting that part.
Option slideshow.
At the bottom, usually it should be there, but in the shared one, I'm not able to change it. Okay.
So there is an option at the above part of it, slideshow.
Slideshow, but that portion is hidden by all these meeting details and all that. I think 1 minute. Let me just check whether I can. It's not so critical because I'm not going to use anything very.
Just hit the play button on right side.
Where? Right side. What should I do?
The play button, sir. Slideshow and play.
Slideshow. You are presenting meeting. Because only thing is that part of the screen window is somewhat hidden by all these meeting details and all that. So it's okay. I mean, it doesn't really matter at all. I'm going to make very specific things. See, one thing you notice at the very top, when I talked about this title is tangible and intangible benefits, because there are several of the benefits of space are intangible. But then when I saw Dr. Hegde's presentation, what kind of a tangible benefits when you look at the Kosi River flooding and how, because of the warning which he was able to give, how he saved lives or how the tsunami was handled, all these are very much tangible also. And one other thing which has happened over the last 50 years is that ISRO moved from the experimental stage to developmental stage, operational, and finally we are in a stage where we can even offer it commercially to other agencies, to other customers. For example, when we used to be part of the INSAT system in the very early days, we used to be looking at the discussions with the different users. Our users were very limited. They were government departments. You have the Department of Telecommunications, then you had Information Broadcasting, you had the Ministry of Science and Technology, which is taking care of the Indian Meteorological Department. So we used to have payloads like, for example, even in the INSAT 1, we had a payload called the DCP, Data Collection Platform, where unattended solar-powered stations used to collect local weather data and transmit it via a satellite link for availability at the Mosam Bhavan, and that was getting processed. But when I looked at Dr. Hegde's presentation, I know how it has graduated, how the DCP has now become AWS with a lot more features, and with the technology changing and miniaturization in the electronics, we are taking advantage of all that. That is because we knew exactly what we need and how the space technology must be positioned in this country. That's why I've just categorized in this particular slide. Some goods are social goods. some are for public, and some private goods. All of them have been provided by the space activities. Obviously, when you look at the social good, the remote area, where suppose in such a remote place, you have absolutely nothing. Your cell phones do not work. You have no way to communicate. If you are lost, you have to be found there and rescued. All these activities have to be done by satellites, in addition, of course, to the monitoring of those remote areas, and then for predictions, for example, the disaster and things like that. We also saw the emergency alerting, because it's one thing to process the data and find out where a particular disaster is approaching, etc. But it's much more important to deliver the correct alert information to those who are under risk and give it specific action plans, whether somebody has to move to a higher ground or they should stay where they are. That should be told very unambiguously, and that kind of a thing is something with only the satellites can do. And telemedicine, of course, we'll come back to it again and again, is something which we started off at that time. The terrestrial networks were not as extensive as now. So we had these capabilities of connecting the specialty hospitals to different centers, be it smaller towns or maybe in areas where been disaster affected. Immediately, we were able to provide the kind of services which was only possible because of using the satellite in that mode. I mentioned the search and rescue, which is using the satellite platform. You can also find out somebody's lost altogether, and how would you be able to locate him? How would you be able to rescue him, and so on. These are all satellite-based systems. These are all for social goods. Then you have public goods, like disaster management has been discussed extensively today. Weather forecasting is also included in that. Tele-education has been my favorite. It's one way in which, if you want to give quality education for all, and you want to have the equity and whatever things which have been talked about on the education front, we can only do it if we can use the satellite component intelligently. National security is extremely important from all areas, not only for remote sensing, it's also for communication. What kind of a secure, encrypted communication that you can offer is very, very important. And we have done extremely well in all those areas. Of course, there are commercially successful things like the DTH televisions, where ISRO, having built this kind of a system and offering it to even private providers, you are able to get your return on your investment very easily. And then you have so many other spin-off benefits. So there can be a benefit to the consumers, there's an increase in utility, producers, and to the society as a whole. So this is a kind of system which we have looked at. But then I'm going to talk very specifically with respect to the communication aspects. And when you talk about communication, we must realize that one of the first things, let me see whether it goes to the next slide, but in this thing, it cannot operate. Will it go to I have to understand how within my window I should operate it, or I should operate it outside of the window. Can somebody help me? If I want to go advance to the next slide, what do I do? Let me see.
So you can click on the next slide in the side window.
In the slide window, but it's not working. Why you can go here? But why is it frozen like that? I don't understand. Looks frozen. I can go here and change it. Will it change? And I think it changes here. If I go outside and do that, perhaps it will work.
I think.
Will it work? Why is it all?
Yeah, now changed.
Did it change?
You are able to. You are able to change it.
I changed it going outside to the PowerPoint. I changed it, but I am not able to now see the screen. How do I do that? Let me See,
Yes.
you may do a lot of satellite technologies, but when it comes to these basic stuff, you really need to learn a lot of things. And let me see what happens. You are presenting, you should do again. Stop sharing, hide. Why did I get a blank screen here? Okay, you are able to see it, right? You are saying, can you?
Yeah.
Good. So
Yeah,
let's,
we can.
if you can see, let me go back. I mean, one of the very important things which happened was way back in 1945. You remember today, people were recalling how the Space Week started because October 4th, 1957 was the Sputnik, very first man-made object going around the Earth, an artificial satellite and all that. But even 12 years before that, this gentleman whom you see on the right top, his name is Sir Arthur Clarke. He was one of those writers and he used to write articles, and he was looking at the various possibilities of how the periods or the satellites would be at the function of distance and all, and then came to a very interesting idea that if only we were having a satellite which is over the equator, but at such a distance at which the orbital period matches with the Earth's rotation, that particular satellite would look like a stationary platform. You know, it's something like as though it is attached to the Earth with an invisible rod, and then it's holding it attached to the Earth. Then he said, if such a platform is available, then you can bounce a signal through that. Whatever you send it to that satellite, and if that satellite can send it back, you should be able to get across huge distances because it is at a very high kind of platform. Unlike platforms, suppose on a hill, you have seen when you are driving through from one town to another, you've seen hillocks where there'll be a microwave tower. And why it's kept on the hillock is only that something which is sent from this part of the hill can bounce back and then go to the other side, because that is the line of sight. So the geosynchronous orbit, where the period is 24 hours, became very interesting. And I had the fortune of meeting Sir Arthur Clarke twice in Sri Lanka. He used to stay most of the time in Sri Lanka until his death. And it was very good. We had organized as part of the United Nations body, which was giving the space-related studies in Ahmedabad. And we had one of those functions organized in Colombo, and he chaired it. He used to come on a wheelchair, but then he came back and gave extremely interesting comments. And what happens is, when you went further on, you look at this concept is of a satellite communication, therefore, is from one point on the ground, which I have now shown somewhere, let's say in USA, to other side, which is on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, let's say Europe. Such large distances could be covered with a single hop via a satellite which is over the Atlantic Ocean. So this was thought of, and then one of the first of the satellites which was used for communication was actually relaying the Olympic program of one of those years, 64 or something, using the satellite to millions of viewers, which would otherwise be not possible because the fiber and other kind of copper connectivities were only reaching out to limited areas. But then you realize there's an uplink, a signal which is sent from the ground to the satellite, and a downlink which is from the satellite to the ground. So the two of them usually are two different frequencies. That means on the satellite, it receives the signal, then amplifies the signal because it's very weak after having traversed 40,000 kilometers, and then you amplify it, you change it to another frequency, and then provide the downlink. So this kind of a thing is called the bent pipe transponder. It's like a pipe, it bends it, it takes from place A to B. It's a fixed satellite service, big antennas, and then you were able to use it for communication. This is how it all started. Like India participated it with the antenna, which was in RV near Pune. And then, of course, technologies always improve. The present day satellites have more and more capabilities. You have capabilities like, for example, frequency reuse, because frequency is an extremely important resource and that has to be very carefully utilized. And now suppose you have a beam and suppose we had an INSAT, for example, we were very lucky. The size of the antennas, which were sort of 2 meters like that, they automatically gave a beam which was covering entire India. So it was very good. But then we wanted to have more, different coverages covering the different parts and so on. So shaping the beam, etc. All those technologies came. Then came spot beams, smaller beams. And once you have smaller beams covering India, a kind of frequency which is available or used in, let's say, in Assam, can be as well used in, let's say, in Kerala or in Kashmir. So therefore, this kind of a reuse makes as though you're doubling or tripling or tenfold increasing the capacity of the satellite. So this was one thing. And most recently, we have even onboard processing kind of communication, in which what happens is the satellite, instead of just being a relay, would act like a switchboard. It will be able to connect incoming signal and connect it to its destination. Suppose you want to talk to somebody, that beam will go there, etc. The switching can all be done. So these kinds of technologies were coming up and they have been extremely useful there. But then this communication is, because of the applications, is what really made the technology very interesting. And there are a variety of applications. Even when we started off with INSAT, which is the Indian National Satellite System, in the communication satellites, it was catering to not just telecommunications, it was talking about television, then radio, All India Radio at that time, radio channels, because we didn't have these many FM channels, and then meteorological applications. All these were being done. So when you look at it, for example, in the mid-80s, one of the important things which happened was to use the satellite for distributing entertainment programs, the DTH, direct to home, and the direct to home kind of satellite channels are making television channels available to every part of the country. Wherever you are able to receive the same set of programs. You can watch the same IPL games or maybe watch the same kind of news coverage and so on. That is because it is being distributed by the satellite. So the satellite is that way a biggest equalizer. And look at that, there are the kind of area where there is so many of these dishes. Everyone is so comfortable spending that much money. You have a Doordarshan's free dish, for example, it gives you maybe 50, 60 channels. It's very good. And you start enjoying them, even though you may be in a small hut or a dwelling place. So that kind of a thing is important from the point of view of DTH, that television distribution. And going further, the next kind of activity would be, let me see, it takes a little while to, yeah, I've got this. This is the application for education. The educational applications, of course, started off at the very, very beginning, because even Vikram Sarabhai sort of thought of this, and then using a foreign satellite ATS-6, we were able to do the SITE kind of thing, satellite instructional television experiments, where for communities, we were able to maybe 2,400 villages, and we had broadcasts for children in the morning. The students and all that, teachers were getting trained, and for the communities, for the old people and all that, there were developmental communications which started off, which moved on further. We used to have Jabua, we used to have developmental communication channels, the GramSat and all that. Then moved on to EduSat and education, where the satellite also evolved just with simple broadcast kind of activities to things where it was highly interactive. And then you have two-way interaction, audio, video, and integrating it with the terrestrial. All the combinations have worked. What is very important is, again, the leveling, where you get the same kind of benefits whether you are in a big city or you are in a very small village, is something which makes the satellite delivery so different and so unique. And that is what is happening, and more should happen. That's what I believe, especially after the pandemic. We can increase the role of the satellite even more than what it is now. Going to the next kind of activity, the moment you have this kind of a present day condition where the offices are all working from home kind of thing, and then when people want to still have interactions, physical travel is very limited, and therefore it's very important to be able to provide the kind of connectivity which will make the groups in different locations feel as though they are across the table. So that kind of a thing is something which always happens. For example, when we used to go for INSAT launches and all that in Kuru, and many of those discussions will happen between Evry and Paris. They will all be happening exactly as though they are in the same room, even though they are in two different continents. And that advantage is very much there when you do it via the satellite. And same thing when you go next down to the telemedicine. The telemedicine has grown from very, very simple activities. In fact, we started it off with some testing it out between ISRO headquarters and Hassan doctors and all that way back. And then we understood that this is something which we can definitely develop. And then we had the first customers from Apollo, and all those people started using this. And this particular thing is now again becoming important, because of the fact that in the COVID situation, it's strongly encouraged to have teleconsultation, telemedicine, because we cannot afford to ignore the patients who are otherwise would have gone to the hospital and got treated. And now they can avail this thanks to the better communications which are available, both terrestrially and the satellite. And this kind of a thing is again important. And the other activity which is of a great societal benefit was in INSAT. We had the very high resolution radiometer. And here, of course, this particular thing is in a disaster kind of situation. Dr. Hegde had gone through it in detail. And one of the important things which immediately happens is you have to restore the communications using a satellite terminal, because the terrestrial systems are prone to be destroyed during the disaster. And then when you most need it, when everybody is so much wanting to know that children are United States, they want to know whether mom and dad are doing fine. They keep every normal day, they would have had a WhatsApp call for half an hour. But now even for 1 minute, they are not able to connect and talk to each other because the last mile in the area where the disaster has struck has failed. So in such cases, it's very important to provide the connectivity using a easily deployed satellite terminal. And that once it's properly grounded there, it should be able to at least provide the emergency communication both ways. It can give you the satellite news gathering, which is also important. Otherwise, today when you see the media, everybody will sort of cook up stories without even a half-baked information, whereas the satellite news gathering will give you exactly what is happening there and make that available through the DTH to every home in their TV sets. So these kinds of, it's only a broad spectrum, because I want to spend more time with the discussion. So I'm not going to spend too much time, maybe only 2 more slides I'll spend, because you have talked on the navigation, or even before that, maybe one quick. This is on the movement of the cyclone, which of course Dr. Hegde has talked in much more detail. But in the very, very early days of INSAT, we are all becoming weathermen. We used to buy the Hindu newspaper. Every day it used to provide the temperatures in various towns. And then there'll be a little INSAT picture. And we used to love it because we only had commanded it and took it. And we knew those originals are there in Hassan and all that. So we used to look at those pictures to understand how the eye of the cyclone is moving and how it's intensifying, when it will hit the coast. All those things are sort of making every common man as a weatherman because of the way it's presented visually. And moving over to very quickly on the navigation side, of course, on the we have had an extremely elaborate talk to the same audience by Dr. Shivaraman a couple of weeks ago, and therefore he covered everything about GPS, Navic, and how they are different and things like that. I just wanted to say there he talked about how, for example, we can easily achieve a 5-meter resolution or 10 and things like that very comfortably with the present setup of the Navic system. But then one can go even further, because there are certain applications which demand something like centimeter kind of accuracy. And if you want to get that, what you need to do is to combine this navigational system with what is called the real-time kinematics. Singapore has done it, for example. So what you do is you get a precise position service, and this service is commercial, and we can definitely deploy this because it will definitely help several industries. And a snapshot of it is what I want to show in the next slide. I don't want you to read this. You can always see it later in your archives, because UL Club has been archiving some of these talks so very well. In fact, I go back and visit them whenever I have some spare time. And here you notice that there are so many services which require the PPS, the precise positioning, and that could be made use of by very innovative combination, especially because today we are talking about opening out the space sector for variety of players from the private sector, and they would want to look at what kind of things that they can do, what value additions that they can do, and be able to address some of the societal needs which are commercial. See, construction industry, if only somebody can definitely help them to correctly position the various bricks, and if there is something wrong, immediately there's an alert. Those things are all doable using these technologies, and satellite will be a very important component. And I've been very fortunate to have been involved with such excellent people in ISRO, and now continuing that thanks to the UL Club. Thanks everyone here, and we will now get ready for our discussion session. Thank you.
Jaraman sir. Hello, Jairam sir.
I am back. Sorry. There was a disconnection. Arun Parnolo.
Dangaraj sir talk over കഴിഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നു.
Sorry.
Okay.
Shall we go ahead with the interactive session?
I think we should start, because otherwise, you'll run out of time. I think we should start the sooner we start. But I know Sri Ram as well as Varun have done a lot of homework, and I want them to have the satisfaction that they are contributing. In fact, they've done extremely good in terms of raising questions and so on.
Yes, sir. Then the forum is open to the interaction. Varun, you take the lead. And as we suggested, very interactive. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Thank you, Jairam sir. Thank you to Rangarajan sir, and thank you to Hegde sir for a wonderful presentation. We are blessed to hear from you. It was really nice. And let's have a discussion on this. Me and my friend Sri Ramesh would like to have a discussion on these two topics covered by you two experts. So I think all students presented here will be happy to acquire knowledge through this discussion. So I invite both of you to the discussion, and all participants in the meet to this discussion. Yeah, it's really important point that people should be aware of what's the uses of a satellite, instead of blaming it as a waste of money. So we all know that ISRO is mainly aiming for the wealth of common man, and hence most of the Indian satellites are communication purpose. And this became a model to all organizations in the world because it's really connected to common man life. What would you like to say about the impact of Indian communication satellites among many other foreign satellites, like its merit and challenges when compared to other foreign satellites?
Well, since you mentioned communication, I must pick it up. But the communication part of it, the kind of satellites when we built and the payloads which we had on them were all the time driven by the user community. I mentioned when we started INSAT, where there's a lot of government money was spent in building those satellites. In fact, first series was bought out from United States. So people were asking, why are you spending money on this when there are so many hungry to be fed and all that? But today, when you look back, you know what a great foresight it has been in terms of understanding the requirements for the different user ministries. And we used to have those discussions in Ahmedabad, the Space Application Center, because very few organizations have a full-fledged center for applications, because that was the importance given there. And all those people from the user ministries used to come and we used to discuss. That is why we came to know that today, if you are going to provide this direct-to-home television so very well in India, even now, of course, we don't have enough capacity for that. That much of demand was there, was known at that time, because we were, and when the INSAT 1 or INSAT 2 had just started, there was hardly any television in the country. Therefore, we knew what is needed and correctly configured the system. And one of the questions you asked is whether the money was well spent. That's why I talked about the tangible and intangible. Even the tangible part, where you can really find out the cost. Take, for example, one of the very interesting applications that is not coming directly under communication as much as remote sensing is the fishermen data, for the catch. India has pioneered this. We were the ones to take the remote sensing data, the sea surface temperature, chlorophyll content and all that, and predict where there will be schools of fish. And then you try to provide that information. It has to be timely. What you have to give is, for today, you should give it only this morning. You can't give it 3 days in advance. So that advisories have to reach those fishermen, and they go there and find the catch. You can do the economics. It's been done and published very well. The additional money that they will spend, maybe 600 rupees or something, they spend addition for this alert messaging, will get them 30,000 rupees or something like that. So that means individuals are directly benefiting by the information which has been delivered. And Dr. Hegde's talk gave several examples of how, whether a government will know who are the people who are really suffered and therefore compensate only for them. If that information was not available, the people who are most loud-mouthed will have walked in and said that, I lost everything, give me the compensation, and they were taken and walked away with the compensation check. So therefore, I think we are definitely trying to make the system as such an operational system, and therefore that system has evolved from all the experimental and other inputs, and the operational system is such a solid one, which I think we are all very proud of it. Dr.
Okay,
Hegde can add.
Okay, sir. Okay, first of all, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to both the speakers, Dr. V.S. Hegde sir and Dr. S. Rangarajan sir. Within 2 hours, within merely a part of 1/12 of the day, we got the opportunity to expand our wisdom in the specified areas of disaster management and communication. So yes, the little span of time was really enough for us to know how satellites really practically improves lives of common man, and how an organization like ISRO, the one which completed the Golden Jubilee already, has taken over all other nations in the area on the theme of World Space Week 2020. So as like Varnatan said, the communication is a necessary part, and a proper satellite system for navigation was the need of the hour. And so India developed our own navigation system, NAVIC, or IRNSS, Indian Region Navigation Satellite System. Recently, Realme X50 Pro, a phone that became the world's first phone which uses NAVIC for navigation purposes. And I want to know when will it become a part of all common man, and what we are facing, what challenges we are facing in the field of NAVIC and navigations in base of ISRO.
Yeah, again, we have come from one of the era where the entire navigation means it was only GPS, and GPS those days had 2 GPS satellites were there for quite a while, but controlled by the Department of Defense in the United States. So there was always one fear that at some point of time when it's very much crucial for the country, we might not get the signal, or the signal may get corrupted and so on. Even the accuracies which were available to the common persons outside of the Department of Defense was lower than what they were given, etc. So there was a need for having our own navigational system. So we've been discussing this. It's very expensive kind of proposition. But then when we created this system, the Navic is such a original idea. It's again evolved from the user requirements, be it for air traffic, or maybe for in the waters or in the land or whatever areas, and the kind of precision that you need. And then we evolved a system which was so different from the GPS in terms of the satellite configuration. See, there we are talking about a constellation of 24 satellites. Here we are talking about something which are all geostationary, 7 of them, and things like geosynchronous, and they always are looking at the point, and therefore you are able to process the signal and derive the kind of accuracies. So now your question is whether this will become available to the common man. Actually, that should be demand driven, and it should be based on the market forces. For example, if GPS, because of its long life so far, has always produced chips which are so inexpensive, so compact, and so that is what is available in all our phones and everywhere else where we are using that. So if it is available like that, they would continue to use that. It's not necessary to replace that with the Navic chips. Navic chips are available, but what's first priority should be to use them in priority sectors. For example, connected with our national security, or connected with air traffic control and such things, where it's so very critical, and that is where you should try to use this technology. That's what has driven us from making this system. It's not for competing with GPS and removing it. Because by this time, so many of those GPS-based systems are in all our devices, so much so that if I tell my grandchildren and all, you go a little north, there will be one building and all. What is north, grandpa? Like they'll ask, because they don't know any of those directions. It's all shown by the chip, which is already sitting in their device. So therefore, I don't think we should go for its own sake replacing it with Navic. But we are preparing and find the right sectors, and when the cost of these chips and the size and other capabilities are always decided by the number game. So if you want to have some reason to go totally on our own, then it should be possible to do so, because SAC Ahmedabad has already shown that this technology is there. It can be transferred to the industry.
So
Sir, I
we
have
expect,
in this regard only, Jairam.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yes,
are we really thinking about any legal framework within which we are going to make it mandatory for this Navic system to be utilized by the rollout of mobiles, etc.? Is there any proposition, sir?
I think we should not do that, because sometimes it may be better to go with the market forces, because these are civilian applications, and these kinds of systems, and people are very much going out to other places and all. You want compatibility and things like that. See, our Navic is region based, and therefore suppose you have this chip, you have that on your phone, you go to, let's say, Europe, and you want to visit somebody there. That time this may be outside the coverage. You cannot have different kind of navigation systems in different places, correct? And therefore you should choose some of those applications which are clearly of high necessity for our critical sectors before making it mandatory. See, by law, if you try to introduce this and say that everyone should use that should come only for some strategic considerations. I don't think it is going to happen in GPS sector in the near future.
Thank you, sir. Varun, take over.
Thank you, sir. So we expect Navic will be available soon in our mobile phones, and we are very happy if it's so. So as we know, most of the countries using satellite system for border management. And we know that ISRO is always with the Indian Army. ISRO did many projects like recently EMISAT. So what's your comment on the major duties of ISRO on border management and how ISRO is contributing to it?
I think I'll let Dr. Hegde talk about the monitoring aspect of that. And Jairam also is there, Vijay is there, so that we'll know how we are utilizing it for the border monitoring. And the communications part of it, I've already touched upon, the kinds of systems that are very specifically using the type of devices which are not in the public domain, but used exclusively by the forces, including situational awareness and all that. No, those are very, very important. Trying to know what is around you in the sector where you are and all that. And we have terminals for that. And those kinds of systems are also supported by the satellite component. But most important is the remote sensing. And then Dr. Hegde, for example, had shown how even with the side-looking radar, how we were able to even look at you make mosaics from out of so many places, and today the newspapers, you see how many of those images are coming up. They're all from the satellite, no?
Yes, sir. So you think Hegde sir can comment more about this,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So I invite Hegde sir to express your comment on this topic.
He's muted.
Yes, sir. Hegde sir is muted.
What can we do?
Yeah, okay. Fine.
He's back. Okay.
So, see, I think if I remember right, about 5 or 6 satellites, high resolution imaging satellites, both optical and microwave, are today being used by the defense forces. We have also set up exclusive defense data reception and defense data processing facilities for them. We have trained sufficient number of people, and we continue to give them training with respect to newer tools and techniques. So it is directly managed by them. So using high resolution optical and microwave images for keeping surveillance on the border is directly managed by the defense, and we don't want to know, and they don't tell also. And of recent, we have also given them exclusive communication satellites. One is for the Navy, one is for the Air Force, and we have enabled them with certain telemedicine facilities. About 100 nodes we have given in the border areas. So whatever defense wants from us, we keep giving. But some alert with respect to severe weather in difficult terrains, or some impending disaster in hazardous zones, that we carry out for the entire geographical region of the country, which we will make available to defense also. Otherwise, the complete space segment capacity, whether it is imaging, whether it is communication, it is being directly handled by defense. Am I okay? Clear? Yeah.
Yes, sir. You're clear.
Yes, sir. Our team was satellite improves life, but while launching the satellites through rockets, it leads to the destruction of environment, and fuel used for launching or propulsion leads to issues. It can perturb the atmosphere and disturb the various atmospheric cycles. And I thought several studies are already performed and published even for ISRO. What are them?
See, as long as you use chemical propellants, certainly yes, there is you're impairing the atmosphere. And of course, compared to that's for a short duration only, and after that it is already at the outer atmosphere and beyond. So the thing is, yes, if you are really thinking of alternate technologies, if you are thinking of, for example, there is something called star tram and all that, no, where you have magnetic levitation being talked about, in which you could sort of speed things up in such a speed at which it comes out and gets into the satellite kind of velocities and all that. But these are all more in terms of ideas. I don't think they will immediately come through, because presently these are well proven systems, and the kind of propellants that we have used compared to the previous generation to now are cleaner propellants, and we cannot be 100% clean, and maybe somebody else can throw more light on that.
So, sir, as you said, ISRO has developed a satellite support to telemedicine system. So, how do we evaluate this telemedicine system used in India? Actually, you already included that in your slide, but I have 2 points. How can we improve this with our advanced satellite technologies, even though telemedicine is not much popular in our Indian villages?
Yeah, I think there are two reasons for that. The popularity or otherwise is, because ISRO always creates the infrastructure and the utilization is done by the local, for example, the state government, the panchayats, and those people might have a health center. In fact, I went and visited, since I stay in some outskirts of the city, I went to 2 or 3 of the health posts in our neighborhood in Kanakpura area, and then went and saw what kind of systems they have. In fact, they had the telemedicine, but that is a terrestrial telemedicine, but they didn't even know how to use it, etc. The training is what they were asking for. We gave them some initial exposure to that. So the idea is like this: a telemedicine, if you want to do it, the patients who are getting treated first should have that confidence that going to this telemedicine facility is as good as going to the doctor, because sometimes psychologically you feel very happy if you go see the doctor, that the doctor touches you, feels you, and says you're all right. You will feel happier. That's what has happened during the COVID times. A lot of people say, I'm missing that. Every month I used to go to the doctor and get my blood pressure checked and all. Now they want me to monitor it myself and report it and so on. But the real commercial advantage that you get is, there are several studies which have been done, like for example in Odisha, some groups of villages where otherwise they were coming to Narayan Netralaya, and what they have really shown, because they were one of the pioneer first users of telemedicine in a big way, and the travel and stay in Bangalore and all that, when you take that into account, there's enormous costs which are incurred if you want to have face-to-face. Not to mention the time of travel, which is large, and you may get into complicated situations. You avoid all that by moving the data rather than moving the patient. That is the real advantage of the telemedicine. And space-based telemedicine makes it even across. That means the real speciality. Today, for example, yesterday you would have read in the newspaper, the Nobel Prize for Medicine was got for those people who found a solution to liver cirrhosis. I don't even know the spelling, and my medical knowledge is so weak. But I know very well that expertise may be there in 1 or 2 hospitals, maybe. How nice it will be that a patient who is having a liver cirrhosis, he is able to get connected to the expert. He says, look, these are the things you should do, or advise the local doctor, you first check this for him, and then give me the report. I will tell you what should be the treatment. So therefore, what you are doing, without the doctor having to move, or without the patients having to move, you are bringing the treatment. That is exactly in education. We are doing it from the teacher and the student. Here we are doing it between the doctor and the patient, and that is the technology. How effective it will be is, again, the system should be popularized, and there should be good articles. The media should talk about it, and then people should start going to the health post and then availing through the link the expert advice is available from the specialty.
I have only one point to add. In fact, this COVID pandemic has made now telemedicine quite popular, because the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in India has recently enacted telemedicine as an accepted procedure for healthcare across the country. And Prime Minister also has launched on the 15th of August the Digital Health Mission.
Yeah.
See, once every citizen has got his health data created digitally as per the accepted healthcare standards. In fact, there are globally accepted standards for collecting and archiving health data of every individual. Once that is done, it will automatically pick up. And slowly, this extended pandemic has also given a lot of confidence to people. People have started, which Dr. Rangarajan already mentioned. Now, everybody, the sales of, say, pulse oximeter has gone up.
Yeah.
The sale of infrared thermometer has gone up, and the handheld or mini, the ECG or mobile-based pulse meter. See, all these things are having great inroads into the civilian market now. I think slowly, our people will also get a lot of confidence. And yesterday or last 2 days, if you are observing the television, even the medicine being administered on Mr. Trump, is being displayed. So the thing is, basically all this will only help to remove the fears in people's mind. Okay, if you are very clear with the symptoms, administer certain drugs on you, and this is all going to happen. Okay, it's only the matter of time. And with the influx of IoT or Internet of Things, which the forthcoming communication satellites are going to bring in a revolution, or the combined way the satellites and terrestrial communication networks are going to make inroads into every nook and corner of the country. I think good bit of the country, because we are one of the most mobile savvy country today, I don't think good part of our guys have any kind of fear to use any gadget. I think it's only time. It's only time, because we 50 years we have traveled this much. Probably next 10 years we will travel far beyond.
Certainly.
Can I supplement, sir? I am Dr. Murthy.
Oh,
I am Dr. Murthy Remilla from ISRO, and also happen to be the current National Secretary for the Telemedicine Society of India.
oh,
Oh,
Okay.
thank you, sir. Thanks to have you here.
I want to supplement that, as was mentioned, on March 25th, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has issued the telemedicine practice guidelines. So far, what has been happening, there have been many believers and many followers, but there was no legal sanctity, or there was some fear of getting into the legal entanglement by some of the doctors or by some of the hospitals. Now that has gone, and actually it has started 2 years back in 2018 when we have held a telemedicine international conference in Amaravati. The Niti Aayog member Dr. Vinod Paul has come. He has helped us a lot, and it was about to come maybe another 5-6 months later, but thanks to COVID it has got preponed by 6 months. Second point, under the Ayushman Bharat program, Government of India has initiated plans before the COVID to establish or augment or upgrade 150,000 secondary and primary centers as having a telemedicine connectivity and having on the network. Out of that, 16,000 were taken up as a first phase pilot project that was just started, and unfortunately, and in some angles fortunately, COVID has come. So this COVID has really helped to take away the fear. The need, if the need is, they say, necessity is the need of the mother, or some other saying. Similar to that, mother of the invention. So similar to that, the patients have come closer to telemedicine, and the doctors, with the support of the Ministry of Health guidelines, they have come closer to telemedicine. And Ministry of Health has taken a target of training 5 lakh doctors in the practice of telemedicine and usage of telemedicine technology. And from Telemedicine Society of India and through our state chapters, we have already conducted and trained more than 30,000 doctors in the last 4 months. And it is going on, and more members are coming into the fraternity of telemedicine, and definitely things will be better, we suppose.
excellent.
Yeah.
Very good.
Actually, me and my is really happy because a great sort of discussion is happening here, even though the time is past 5. And I asked the question about environmental issues that we face while we launching the rockets. And as that, we have an environmental rather than the geo environmental. The outer space is also considered as an environment. And after a satellite tenure is over, it became scrap for us, but still it rotates around the Earth and slowly divides in parts, and those two rotating around Earth, which is known as space debris. And also we can track the space debris, but not to remove. How the parts are tracked, and is there any remedy for this issue of removing the used satellites?
Yeah, the space debris is, of course, I'll first go with a very short comment, is such a problem. It has been realized for a while. It's not so much that it collides or something, because all these small or big objects move using the same Newtonian mechanics. And but only thing is, for a new entrant, something is getting launched or some new satellite is being repositioned and all that, there is always a risk of something hitting them and then affecting the operations and things like that. And therefore, it's very important to control the kind of debris. The population is increasing considerably because you see SpaceX, for example, is launching 60 satellites every week and things like that. So once you have so many of these satellites, in fact, some of them which are not functioning, they were trying to deorbit, they are trying to bring it down and things like that because they've got that capability. But most of the time, the satellites and the rocket parts and all that are just left there, and if they are closer in the thicker atmosphere, they tend to break up and become dust and things like that. But there are missions, including CubeSat missions and so on, where they are trying to show the kind of technologies with which we can remove the debris or clear the debris. But it has not become mandatory as yet that the international law should be there in terms of how one is supposed to control it. For example, geostationary satellites, there is a strong recommendation of at the end of the life, you move it to a graveyard orbit, which is a little bit higher than that. That people do it mainly because the same slot may be used by the same organization for a future satellite, and they don't want an unusable object in the same neighborhood. But for near Earth, there is a serious problem, and I hope it will get addressed.
Okay, sir. We were talking. Okay, Jaram sir, anything to?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I only want to add one small thing to what Dr. Rangarajan said. You see, there are a lot of studies are going on for smaller satellite, to cut short their life after the useful time is over. In fact, on PSLV, we had launched a satellite called Deorbit Sail. It was a European Commission funded project by the Surrey Space Science Centre UK. We launched it commercially. The satellite was very small, about 5 kgs, but it carried a small sail of a few square meters packed, like a matchbox. So at the end of life, the whole thing will be made to deploy. It increases the drag and it comes down. And when I was in Antrix, this is one thing. So it cut shorts because the small debris should not be causing big problem. Sometimes, they are not trackable also. But certain things will come because people are growing aware. The space agencies are growing aware. And there was another mission. The Ukrainian Space Agency had come to ISRO asking for 4 GSLV launches and 4 PSLV launches, basically for scavenging satellites. They wanted to deploy 4 satellites in LEO for scavenging the dead Earth observation satellite, and 4 in geostationary orbit for those satellites which are not pushed up to graveyard orbit, scavenge them. So I think there is a lot of awareness among advanced space agencies. And now with rendezvous having been made possible in space, for any satellite or any space body, living space body, to go and slowly grab another free-flowing fellow is not difficult. Okay, if day in and day out you can dock with the space station, come back with a cargo or humans, and people will find a way. Okay, so just a matter of time, but I am very confident in our lifetime we will see the space, outer space being scavenged.
Very good.
Varun?
Yes, sir. Can I continue? We
Continue.
have a few more points for our discussion. Can we
Please.
continue with that?
Please do.
But what is the time?
Time is now 5:10. 1 or 2 points more. Is it okay?
Okay, make it fast.
Okay, sir. So we were talking about communication and navigation satellites. So in this discussion, both of you were talking about LEO orbits, and it's one of the interesting word now. So when we're talking about communication satellites, it's important to talk about LEO and Geo orbits. Nowadays, we hear about big constellation of low Earth orbit satellites. Many of the students will be curious to know about it. And what would you like to say about it? And I also want to ask you that if India is going to have such a constellation, and I'm very curious to know about the main difference between LEO and Geo.
Well, I can take that because, Geo, I explained why it came up with Arthur Clarke's orbit and all that in the beginning, and that's good. But then one of the important uses these days, whether it's very much needed or not, I wouldn't want to comment, is the social kind of networking. A lot of such applications are there. People want to have WhatsApp, they want to have Instagram, whatever, wherever they are, and they want to keep exchanging things like that. So many of those agencies, Facebook and all, are very keen to provide the kind of internet connectivity everywhere. And for that kind of purposes, they are thinking that the internet connectivity, if you want to provide with the geostationary satellites, there are two problems. One is in terms of the coverage itself, and the other is, more importantly, the latency. How much time it takes for a signal to reach there. One way itself is about 150 milliseconds. So what happens is, if you want to do interactive things like the internet browsing and all that, there are issues because of the large latency. The LEO, on the other hand, the low Earth orbiting satellites, as you are generally aware, have periods which are like 100 minutes, 150 minutes, like that. And therefore, to that extent, they are much closer to the Earth and the latency is less. So that problem would not be there. But then, unlike Geo, a LEO satellite has the acquisition of signal to end of signal. So the pass only few minutes, 10 minutes it will be available. Another 90 minutes later, another 10 minutes. Then maybe in the night, another. Typically, you have 40-50 minutes of visibility over a day. So therefore, one satellite by itself will not be sufficing, except if you are doing store and forward. But here they want real-time connectivity. So people are all talking about constellations. And my goodness, today, you name it, it's Starlink I just mentioned, you have Amazon or any number of them, each talking about 4,000 satellites like that. So it's going to be crowding our low Earth altitudes with enormous number of these satellites, all supposed to be providing internet kind of services. Actually, the first LEO constellation started with Iridium in 1980s, where they wanted to provide satellite phones in such places where there was no cell telephony. But now these are all much bigger constellations. And in India, we don't have a very big program of our own, but recently one of the Indian companies has acquired a stake in OneWeb, which is one of those constellations which probably will come up, and therefore they may be able to provide some of those connectivity which are typical of LEO. But at the moment, from our requirements point of view, how we have brought about the national requirements, we still believe that we can do it with Geo, and that has been our mainstay. And let us see, as things come up after the LEO comes up, what kind of, how costly it will be to get the connectivity, and all that must be worked out.
I like to address one more point related to this thing.
Yeah.
Like International Satellite, INSAT, and Radar Imaging Satellite, RESAT, are in ISRO's two satellite series that using predominantly in application related to disaster management. But I saw that INSAT was in the geosynchronous orbit and GSO, while RESAT was placed in low Earth orbit, LEO. Why they were put in different orbits, even though the main applications of them is quite same?
See, as Dr. Hegde has gone at length, disaster management is a huge operational system with so many components. Obviously, you have to monitor it, and you have to locate the things, and then you have to deliver some alert communications and things like that. So therefore, you require a communication component, you need the remote sensing component, and a variety of other things. So RISAT's purpose is different. And, obviously for observations, if you're closer to the Earth, it's always better. And it gives you repetitive coverage and things like that. Whereas the geostationary platform may be primarily used for communication, but is also used for imaging only for the purposes of meteorology and things like that, where you want to get the cloud imagery and things like that. At that scale is all right. But if you want to get a higher resolution, you need to obviously have the LEO components. So all of them are required if you want to manage disaster.
Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful experience for us. It's a endless topic. These two topics, communication and navigation, and disaster management. But we have short of time. Exactly when speaking about that, it's about 60 years of ISRO, because ISRO is very well connected to Conman Life, and these two topics are really the major part of it. So we were very happy to have a discussion on it. And as you said, we were doing a few homework about these points to discuss with the national level experts like you. And it was a pleasure of all students of UL Space Club. And thank you, Jayaraman sir and Kutty sir, for giving an opportunity to me and Sriram. So over to Jayaraman sir.
Good.
Thank you, Bharat.
Mr. Jayram, can you just give me 1 minute? I just spoke about Dr. Hegde soon after he finished his presentation. And I have to do likewise for my friend Dr. both are very, very good friends. So one should not feel, Kutty didn't open his mouth for me. I know it will not be. It will not be. I know it will not be. But at least my friends here, will think. So not for that sake. I just wanted to make one point. That in our midst, between 5th and 7th, that is day first and today, we had 4 people who were all leaders in their own fields. And today, you heard Hegde and now Dr. Rangarajan. Dr. Rangarajan is a leader in low Earth orbiting as well as geo satellite. LEO and geo, he is a master in that. And he has been the director of the LEO, that is low Earth orbiting ISTRAC, ISRO telemetry and tracking network. He was the director of that, where IRS type satellite low Earth orbiting, he had controlled that. Similarly, when it came to geo, he was in MCF, Master Control Facility Hassan. He was there. So you are all fortunate, my students, my friends, you are all very, very fortunate to see such stalwarts of national level talking to you so openly and so friendly and so elaborately, giving all explanation to your doubts. So you are really a fortunate lot people, and I thank Dr. Rangarajan for coming again and again and spending time with us. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Hegde, and all of you. Thank you very much. And I see YVNK is not tired, even after spending 2.5 hours day before yesterday. And is even now with us. Thank you, sir.
The Ganesh sir are also with us.
Oh, so nice.
Ganesh was there today.
By the way, Dr. Murthy Ramila butted in and gave a very nice explanation and a good comment about telemedicine. I don't know whether he is right now available. I would like to know that where he is working in ISRO and a little more about. I want to get connected to you if you are available.
In fact, you should have one of his sessions.
Yeah. He is not available in the meeting.
Sir, he is in URSC, sir.
Yes.
Is it?
He's in URSC only.
Oh,
Ganesh Raj here.
very.
He's our old friend.
Okay.
He was in headquarters also. Antrix also.
Okay.
His face looks familiar.
No, he was in
Okay,
NRC, sir.
very-
When you were there, he was in NRC. Later he came here.
Okay, okay.
Mm.
Okay,
No, I
Ganesh,
can talk
can
to
you
him. I have his contact details.
kindly give his contact to me, Ganesh?
I will
Because-
send you, sir.
Okay, please, because this kind of people will be helpful, particularly to the students, because their mind is with them. That is one good thing for that. Okay.
I will meet him
Thank
also.
you.
Tomorrow. I will tell him also. No problem.
Okay, please thank him for his comment. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Bye, sir.
Kuti sir,
Jairam, please carry on.
Kuti sir, is Vigil going to join us? Mr.
Who?
Vigil?
Dr. Jayaraman is there.
Unlike-
Jayaraman is there.
Vijay is there, yeah, full road.
Vijay, you will see, we will be not completing our thing without hearing you for at least few words. Jay,
Yeah, then I may
Vijay.
recommend at least.
Vijay, please.
I was just
Please
listening
bless us
only.
with few words.
Unmute.
I unmuted. See, I've been listening for quite some time for all the talks what you have done. Out of the 20, maybe even 10 to 12, I would have listened. You covered all the spectra. Nothing is really left behind. And of course, all the questions are common across. I see the thread of commonality among the questions asked by the students. The space debris comes again and again. The low Earth orbiting and the Geo comes again and again. So these answers should be standardized so that they are not appearing again next time. Okay. And of course,
Okay, good.
And Kutti Garu has done a fantastic job. I don't know whether everybody compliments him or not. When he retired in headquarters, it was a function. Suddenly, I was pulled out to talk on him. I said, "Eki Kutti hota hai." There is only Eki Kutti. Okay, only Kutti is available. He continues to be the same even outside ISRO. Hats off to you. And this is a very good effort what you're doing. And I'm sure that all the people who have talked here, Dr. Rangarajan, Dr. Hegde, Dr. Vaidyan Krishnamurthy, Dr. Ganesh Raj, part of the space week, and beyond that, I think they will be associated with you. And I wish all of you all the best for the coming days as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Can we proceed with the vote of thanks from Damodar Master? Damodar Master.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Please. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I am happy to assume the charge to say vote of thanks for this wonderful program conducted by UL Space Club as a part of World Space Week celebration. Two very important and timely relevant subjects are discussed here. It is our pride to have such eminent persons from prestigious institutions of India like Dr. V.S. Hegde and Dr. S. Rangarajan have made very informative and excellent speech on the subject. Both speeches are very valuable and the presentation was very good. Dr. V.S. Hegde gave a vivid picture of satellite contribution in improving human life. And Dr. Rangarajan explained the tangible and intangible benefits that satellites can afford to improve the life. We are fortunate to have these two eminent persons with us in this occasion, and that gives us a lot of confidence and expectation. On behalf of ULPCS Foundation, we extend our sincere thanks to Dr. V.S. Hegde and Dr. Rangarajan for delivering two eloquent speeches. Thank you again. With proud and contentment. Thank you, sir, again. I thank you, Dr. Murthy Ramila, for supplementing more details about telemedicine facilities. And I thank all the veterans like YVN Krishnamurthy, Ganesh Raj, Dr. Jairam Venkataraman, like that. And all the students participated in this program, expecting all of your cooperation in future programs. I thank the organizers of this program, Sri K. Kuti sir, Sri K. Jayaraman, Sri Shajil Master UK, Master Varun, Master Bharat, Master Adil Krishna, Master Abhiram,
who are the backbone of UL Space Club, toiling for the success of the program conducting so far. Once again, I thank all and let me stop my words. Thank you all.
Thanks, Damaramash.